Well, let's now talk about the Kenyan DJ, the infamous or famous Kenyan DJ who right now is the talk of the town. The issue is refusing to die down. And there is no pun intended there, and you'll understand why I'm saying that. See, his wife elected to terminate her own life on account of some distress she was experiencing from an argument she had with her husband, I guess, this DJ guy. And he filmed the ordeal as she was essentially in her situation. And then she threatened to drink the poison, and he encouraged her to do so, and she drank the poison, and apparently she died shortly thereafter. My understanding is that upon starting to feel the effects, she was rushed to hospital, but it was too late. So that got a lot of people talking. He was criticized, this DJ, for having filmed the ordeal, which obviously divided many opinions. Myself having the opinion that it was good that he recorded it. I went as far as to encourage other men to record such episodes should they happen in their homes, because this guy was lucky. Had he not recorded it, don't you think his entire family would have been cussing him out and calling for his arrest? They would have all claimed that he killed her. Mm-hmm. He would have tried to say she killed herself, she drank the poison, and everyone would have said, don't lie to us, we know her so well, she was our sister, she loved life, she loved her children. Are you crazy that she can kill herself? Who do you think we are, fools? And yet, as we saw in the video, she indeed did that. So it really exonerated him from that allegation, the fact that he filmed it. And many men have found themselves exonerated from similar allegations. Johnny Depp today would still be suffering from a terrible reputation if not for the fact that we heard audio of his ex-wife, taunting him. Oh yeah, so I hit you, so what? Besides, you're a man.
Go tell them, no one will believe. So here's my opinion, and there is that notion of he did right to record the ordeal, and I'm like, I've actually not 100% faulted him for recording the ordeal, especially the point where she mixes the poison, and of course some people are like, maybe he was calling her bluff, maybe, but the pesticide she used to kill herself, even if you think someone is joking, it's actually, because some people were saying probably he didn't know that it was real poison. But I know, lava, that pesticide, it smells, whereby if I'm in the room with you and I have it, you will know, because it smells that terrible, you know, that stench of pesticides. So anyway, he recorded her taking it, but for me, what angered me was continuing to record. She falls down from the couch, she starts writhing in pain, and he is still recording. And then later, apparently, because the video is 7 minutes long, and he was still recording, the children came into the room and he was still recording. Then after, he decides to take her to the hospital. So I'm like, was he taking her to hospital to save her life or to save his face?
Well, how about this? I have heard it argued that this was a common occurrence. She was someone that was prone to always threatening to kill herself and gesturing as if she were consuming dangerous items. So essentially, it was a case of the boy who cried wolf, where she bluffed enough times to the point where he thought it was just yet another
Fatboy,
bluffing episode.
Fatboy, you watch that video, you can see a point where was it saliva coming out, like a point where she couldn't even control herself. She had these fluids coming out of her body. That was no longer a bluff. You could see that someone is dying. And my thing is this. Okay, she was suicidal. She had threatened to kill herself several times. And as a person who is with her, you have a right to say, I am done. I am done with this drama. I can't be part of this. But what do? You can extricate yourself from this situation by taking the woman back to her family, by leaving her, by taking away your children so that you do not have to be in that situation. He remained with her. If someone is mentally sick or suicidal, you either institutionalize them or you take them back to their family. You do not watch them as they are dying and record that.
I think you do that. You do film them even though they are dying, because because please remember this, and this is the important point. Had he not done so, there was a very high likelihood of him being held culpable for her death.
I hear that argument, but I'm like, if this has been going on for several times, why didn't he leave her? Why didn't he take her back to her family? Why didn't he seek help for her? Take her to the Tabika of Kenya. Do something. He didn't do it because he thought he was man enough to go through it, and he couldn't.
Wait a minute. See, here's what I don't understand, because you're blaming him for what?
I am blaming him for recording a human being die, and he did nothing about it.
I've
been reading all your posts, and they are crazy. Actually, at one point I was like, is Fatboy crazy? How do you justify something like that over?
But I've explained.
This is not a girlfriend.
I've explained my point.
I understand. I'm like,
what don't you understand?
Even 2 minutes of that video were enough. 7 minutes without doing anything. This is the mother of your children. If you're tired, fine. Do something at least for your children's sake. How is he going to exonerate himself in future to his children and say, hey, oh, by the way, she was suicidal, so I decided to watch her die?
You don't think they'd seen their mom do stuff like that?
And do you think they're
regularly?
in position to make good decisions regarding what their father did?
You're trying to blame the guy for this, but I don't think it's going to work.
Would you watch your baby's mother kill herself and do nothing? Would you do that?
If I were, and I have lived with a psychotic woman before.
This wasn't being psychotic. This was
committing
psychotic
suicide.
Is different.
Trying to commit suicide in front of other people, that is a psychotic act. That is not something that a normally
so
functioning person does.
So when the person was psychotic and you
you
lived with them, what did you do?
So in my case, obviously, I was fortunate that her level of psychosis did not lead to her threatening suicide. Very much bordered on that, never quite got there. To be honest, if that had happened, I may not have been fully aware of how to deal with the situation, which is why I think this is a learning opportunity for men. Every tragedy is a learning opportunity. And my advice is to avoid living with and partnering with women that you can clearly see are showing signs of psychotic behavior.
And this is exactly what I've said. If you feel like she is psychotic, and I like the fact that you've used the term psychotic, because at the end of the day, you have been posting on your Facebook page saying that people use mental health as a crutch, but psychosis is actually a mental illness, or it is in that class. So you have already given it a name. You cannot again come around and call it a crutch.
I said psychotic behavior.
And so how do you separate psychosis and psychotic behavior from mental illness?
And I'm glad you asked that question. And it's a debate that requires more time. Can I tell you why? Because if you look at name your psychological condition that is typically diagnosed as a form of mental illness, list them down. And then after that, go to the Wikipedia page for PMS, which my understanding is a fairly common occurrence for ladies. And go below to read the symptoms of PMS. You will be shocked to see that in some cases, these symptoms are almost indistinguishable. Now, I feel like we all lie in a spectrum of mental dysfunction, and women are encumbered with hormones and hormonal fluctuations that can tend to push them in one extreme more than is the case for men. They say that for women trend more towards psychosis, whereas men trend more towards autistic or autism, right? So if a woman, for example, they say there's such a thing as postpartum depression, where she can give birth to a child and may want to end its life, may want to kill it, and we are supposed to say, oh, hey, don't be shocked, this is a thing that a lot of women go through, and we understand that it's a phase that a lot of women can undergo and yet can manage to go through and be okay after.
There are some that have it at heights that cannot, that you just don't give time and say, just give her time, she'll be okay.
But my point is,
there are some that go through postpartum depression and they actually need clinical help.
So my point is this: it is for us to understand our proclivities and our weaknesses and take steps to mitigate against those things. Because I hate the word survivor, but I've mentioned how I've been diagnosed previously with clinical depression, acute clinical depression, and I was having suicidal ideations, which is different from suicidal intention. Suicidal intention is, okay, I need to die, here's how I'm going to do it. I just need to figure out what day to do it. That's like now code red. You need to be institutionalized, right? Or at least you need to be, if they want to save you, they need to lock you up and hopefully let you, I guess, come out of that phase, right? Whereas an ideation is more like, oh, well, if I died, I wouldn't care. I hope a truck hits me as I'm walking across the road. I hope a piano falls on me as I'm walking under this bridge. Like that kind of thing. Ideation. And I went to 2 therapy sessions and I received medication. And the therapy sessions bored me to tears. So after the second one, I stopped going. But I did enjoy the medications they gave me. The medications suppressed a lot of the more painful emotions, so they kind of made me numb to them. I kind of felt like a zombie, right? But eventually I came to the realization, I just sort of figured out that, look, I'm too much in my head. That's my problem. I'm overthinking the pain I am feeling from the triggering event, because the depression was triggered by a failed relationship. And so I needed to find ways of getting outside of my head, because when you're sitting there all alone and you're just in your thoughts, it's a black hole, a rabbit hole that you can just spiral into. So you need to find ways of just keeping yourself afloat and away from those dark thoughts long enough for time to do its healing. And so I went and I got a dog. And so when I got the dog and had the dog with me around the house as it's pooping and pissing all over, I had less time to dwell on my own inner dark thoughts, because I was mostly chasing after the dog, making sure it wasn't biting my shoes or destroying my furniture or something like that. And over time, I began to dwell less and less and less on my personal problems and issues and thoughts. And my mind was interacting more with external things in the world. In this case, the dog. Okay, so my point is this. I took responsibility over my situation.
And I appreciate that, and kudos to you. But the one thing you're forgetting is that no 2 people are the same. And yes, you had clinical depression. Actually, according to an update I just received right now, it is said that the lady also had clinical depression. But you see, you went through it. You had a way to cope. You got out of your head. People who normally commit suicide, unfortunately, don't get out of their heads. Because I don't know if a sane person would just wake up one day and say, you know what? Let me end it all. People kill themselves because in their heads, everything is done for. Even the children that they have no longer matter to them, because everything is now about them. That's why I never understand when someone commits suicide and everyone is like, this person is selfish. How could you not think about the children? When you are mentally ill, you're not thinking about the children, you're thinking about yourself, and all you want to do is to let the pain stop. And for most people, getting the pain to stop is to kill themselves.
So let me ask you a question. Do you think that if one elects to delete themselves from existence, do you think that is something they should have the right to do, and should that right be honored and respected?
I don't think, like, if I'm there and I let them do it, I cannot just fight because saying they wanted to die, so I had to let them be. And because you suppose, I asked you a very good question. You're a father now. You have your baby mama. And I asked you if she ever was in that place and you were there. Would you let that happen because she wants to self-delete?
Well, if she had exhibited a pattern of behavior like that, because let me tell you, not all parents are perfect. Some parents are just weird, and I don't want to use the word evil, it's too much of a strong word, but some parents behave in ways that can really damage children. They're not healthy to be around, for them to be around their children. There's many children that get. And do you know what you do if a parent is like that? You can take the children away from them. You can, like you said, when you were saying that men need to observe the kind of women they get with, and if they're psychotic, they need to get themselves out of that situation. I agree with that. If someone shows behaviors that you cannot deal with, get out of the situation. My challenge, my problem with what is in that clip is one. If you are with me and I'm your wife, it doesn't mean that you own me, that I don't have another family. You could be tired with my bullshit. So you could be tired of my crap. But at the same time, maybe I have a mom, maybe I have a dad who loves me and they're willing to try. And apparently,
all I'm saying is, let this person go to their people. Call them and tell them she has decided to do this.
He filmed it for the purpose of alerting them to her dysfunction.
And then he waited until when she was almost done for.
He didn't know she was going to go all the way.
Fatboy, come on, stop justifying the unjustifiable.
Because she kept.
You were watching.
She had been doing this over the years.
But she was not taking poison. She was not taking poison.
How do you know?
This story says she was diagnosed with clinical depression the pandemic.
You can have a girl.
No, Fatboy, this is the thing. Every time something doesn't make sense to you, you always ask, how do you know?
The problem
Where are you there?
The problem is...
This is something you always do with something that doesn't appeal to you.
Calm down. The problem is, if you're to look at this situation calmly, you see, I'm a man who's been around... Every man will have a story of a crazy chick he's been around.
And you think we don't?
My point is,
you think we don't have stories of crazy men?
Excuse me. Do you think no woman has ever stood in front of me with a knife in hand, threatening to slit her own throat?
What did you do?
You think I've never seen that?
So what did you do?
Did
you let them slit their throat?
I kept quiet, sat and watched, and then they changed their minds. And when someone does that enough times, and once again they present themselves to you with threats of self-harm, it's easy. Listen to me. It's easy to assume that the person is once again bluffing. And to be fair, usually the bluffs escalate because they realize, okay, I'm bluffing again, but they might not buy it. So let me push the envelope a little bit, show them I'm a bit more serious. A lot of times it's a cry for help.
Okay, this time round she didn't bluff. She mixed the poison as he was watching. She took it as he was watching, and he did, that was alone enough for him to be like, oh my goodness, this time she's serious. But then he watched and even called the kids to come into the room. They came. He even asked the maid to give her milk. Do you know when you give someone milk, when they have taken poison, you give that person milk? It's one of the first aid methods that are usually used. He called for the maid to bring the milk, so he knew she had carried it through, and he still did nothing.
I think listen to me, I think at some point it dawned on him that it was serious,
but he didn't even get the cup from the maid.
At some point it dawned on him that
at what point did it
this
dawn
chick
on
has
him?
actually gone through with it.
He didn't,
and she might actually die.
But he still did nothing because he didn't even tell the maid, give me the cup. Nothing.
He took her to hospital. Now what do you want?
Which hospital? To save face. And how I know that this
man...
To save face, because if you want to save someone's life,
he can do no good.
No. If you want to save someone's life, you do not wait until when they are almost gone for you to say, let me take you to the hospital. That's not what
all
you
relative.
do.
And I think it's unfortunately it's convenient for you to say that.
It is not convenient, and I'm actually baffled that you are defending something as evil.
I am absolutely defending him. And also, I am encouraging men to always be ready to film any such episodes. If your girl is acting up, making threats of harming you or herself or your kids or whatever, film it. Film it, because if in the event it does escalate into something tragic, like in this case it did, you will at least have a basis of proving your innocence. My goodness, had this video not been there, this man would be in jail.
And do you know what? You film your wife or girlfriend killing themselves, and then you go on social media. This lady died in July last year, and then over the months, he's been writing on Instagram different posts. There is one where he says her death left a gaping hole in his heart. There is one where he posted their children and said, our children are okay. What is missing is your beautiful smile. There is one where he kept saying he doesn't understand the world anymore because she's not in it anymore. This man is toxic and sick too. These people were probably toxic towards each other. So you're not going to put him here and say that he is innocent and that he is a good person.
You see, this is what you and
why was he posting on social media,
you and I, listen,
fronting himself as a perfect husband?
I am only willing to discuss what I know and what I can verify.
But no,
and not
I have been reading his posts.
The video shows me.
Go to the internet. Go to the internet and search DJ Brownskin. You're going to see all his posts on Instagram.
You see, that's all circumstantial.
It's not circumstantial. It is his handle.
Why are you shouting?
It is his. No, because you're annoying me.
Oh.
I am annoyed. Call me emotional, because that's what you like to do most times when people disagree with you. I am annoyed that you're justifying this nonsense.
If it quacks.
Right now, I don't understand the kind of person you are.
the fact is this, as many men have been in these situations, Johnny Depp almost had his career ruined. Everyone was quick to believe the ex-wife's allegations about abuse. She even posted pictures of herself with fake in Photoshop enhanced injuries of alleged domestic altercations. My goodness, had it not been for the evidence he was able to present, we'd all still think of him as an abusive, terrible, terrible man. Now, I can't speak to the nature of the relationship between these two parties. I don't know the guy, I don't know the wife. But all I can say, at least with regards to him having filmed the video, it ended up being a good thing on his part. As to whether you think he should have taken her to the hospital sooner or later, or what was he meaning with his posts after, that's all up for speculation. But on the single objective fact as to whether or not he should have filmed the ordeal, the answer for me is an unequivocal yes. I'm glad he did it, and I would encourage men to do the same thing. If you're with a woman and she starts threatening like that, of course we can only hope that it would never lead to an actual suicide, but whip out your phone and tell her that you're filming her. Tell her to act all crazy. It'll do one of two things. First, knowing that she's being filmed, it might calm her down and she'll be like, okay, maybe this is not a good idea, because now she'll be self-aware and self-cautious. Or second, in the event that she does do something to hurt herself or
watch her till she dies,
or hurt you,
to exonerate yourself.
Yes, because you know what, ultimately, as much as you hate that she may have done this to herself, it was her responsibility, and you can't argue away from that.
My argument has not said that her deciding to kill herself was his fault. I've not even said he
Thank you. That has to be emphasized.
I have not even said that he pushed her to the edge to kill herself. I've seen other things being said, but I'm not even raising that. But honestly speaking, as a husband, you have a responsibility to protect your family, and that family includes your wife.
Nope.
And I'm saying, if you see that she is suicidal, institutionalize her. There is nothing saying that he even tried to get her help at all. There is nothing that says that
your mental health is your personal responsibility.
There is nothing that says that you have children with this person. It's no longer about you, Fatboy. It's no longer about you. That's why I said, if you can't do it for yourself, it's okay. Do it for your children, so that in future you can be accountable to having done something.
He
didn't do anything.
Here's what
he didn't do anything.
I think here's what
How do you justify someone that stood there watching the person he once loved? I don't care if he didn't love her anymore, but how do you watch something like that from start to finish? 7 minutes of that video.
She shouldn't have.
This crazy man even kept that video.
Why not? Why shouldn't he have? Why shouldn't he have? I mean, why are you in your feelings about this?
I am in my feelings, damn it. And I'm in my feelings because I am right. Why are you defending? You're also in your feelings, suggesting that men should protect themselves.
I'm looking at this calmly, and I am insisting
let me tell you,
that it was a good course of action.
Be calm. It's all right. I am not calm because this invigorates me. As in, if you guys hate women so much, don't be with them. Date each other. It's that simple.
Nice. Now that just sounds funny.
Because you men keep saying, no, it's funny, I know.
Just sounds funny.
Because everything I've said, the vitriol you've been spewing with your comrades.
Just facts.
That you've been spewing with your comrades on social media is more of, which facts? Which facts? I even saw some of the people that usually support you being like, you know what, Fatboy, you're overrated on this one, because you keep talking about your clinical depression. I won't take that away from you, but at the same time, you're not the textbook mental health expert or patient. People go through things differently. So you can't use your experience to always justify you're entitled to your opinion.
You see, but
at the same time,
it works both ways. You don't get to come to me to tell me I don't know what I'm talking about because I don't know what others have gone through, and then at the same time want to discount my own opinion.
Yourself.
It means I bring it up.
Fatboy, I've gone through depression several times in my life.
Can
even
I get
right now,
a sentence in?
Even
Is
right
it possible
now,
for me to get a sentence in?
Let me finish. Even right now, you don't know if I'm depressed or not. I don't use my own situation to justify my opinions about other people's lives. You always come to us and tell us, I went through ABCD and this is what I did, which is good for you, but it doesn't mean that because you went through it, someone else is just supposed to take it because Fatboy went through it and was okay. We are different people.
Can I get a sentence?
And that's what you fail to recognize.
Okay, so if you're done, here's what I want to say. The reason I bring up the fact that I have experienced it personally, it is because we live in a world where people just don't want to be objective. It's just a fact. People just don't want to be objective. Try discussing racial issues. Oh, you're not black, so you're not qualified to say anything. Or you're not white, you're not qualified to say anything. Before I had a child, could I dare say anything about family life? You're not a parent, you can't say anything. People are quick to discount you right off the bat if you can't claim to have some sort of stake in that situation yourself, or if you've experienced it. So I bring it up only to address the kinds of people who would be quick to dismiss me on those grounds. I'm not saying that in itself makes me right, but at least that qualifies me to enter the debate in the eyes of those who would claim that it would be a requirement for me to have done so in order to have a say in the matter. Okay? But even not counting that, I do feel like the arguments I present can be judged on their merits. And I do caution you that at least with respect to the mental health issue, there is a dangerous slippery slope that we are constructing. Today we see what's happening in America and the epidemic rise of transgenderism. Everyone is non-binary now. Everyone is a freak. A 55-year-old man says he identifies as a 6-year-old girl, and someone identifies as a cat, and it's all supposed to be okay. And should you dare say anything about it, oh my gosh, you hate women, you hate gays, you're stigmatizing. Let everyone be. That's my problem. Now you get to the point where middle-aged men want to share restrooms with your young daughter, and is that okay? It's not. Meaning there is a need for us to be objective in assessing what do we call mental illness.
So you believe that people who are now saying they identify as kids or as cats, that it's a mental health issue?
No. What I'm saying is this, is because we have stretched the umbrella of terms that qualify as mental illness now, that anyone, any narcissist who is suffering from a need for attention can claim that their narcissism is a form of mental illness, thus should not be criticized, and thus should not be spoken out of.
You know the thing about narcissism, and you, because someone listening to you who may not agree with you, they might actually say this narcissist is carelessly throwing these words around because all he cares about is himself. So when it comes to, because even narcissism, especially the one that has been diagnosed, leave alone people just saying, oh, that person is a narcissist, it's also a mental health issue.
I think it's more I don't know if I wouldn't call it you see, that's another thing.
Because there are borderlines. There is borderline narcissistic disorder.
You see, so here is my thing. I'm not like sort of a textbook person. Because if we are to go by that, apparently gender dysphoria is now no longer treated as a mental illness. Did you know? And yet for the longest time it was. Gender dysphoria is when a person wakes up and feels like they're a different gender born into the wrong body. You know, people used to treat that as mental illness. Now it's considered to be a normal thing. So if a man struts around in a dress, we're supposed to applaud that. Or if a teenage girl wants to chop off her breasts, that's okay. Don't say anything. Otherwise, you're a bigot. So,
but do you also know that actually when you mention the issue of gender, that there are people who are actually born and they have I forget the right term, I want to say hormones, but for instance, a guy can be born and raised as a girl, but then they reach a point in their lives and their body is changing and they're more of a man than a girl, so they have to actually go through gender reassignment because everything else about them, even the voice, has changed to a man, yet they were raised as a girl. That is a whole other conversation.
So I'm not familiar with that, but to just circle the point home, I think on the issue of mental illness, I think we have unfortunately stretched the definition so broadly to now anyone with a weird quirk or fetish is now considered mentally ill. If someone is feeling too lazy to work, that's mental illness.
But if we are to go away from the stretches and come back to actually examinable mental illnesses, things like PTSD, things like postpartum depression, things like narcissistic personality disorder, and many others that are actually there.
That's not a part.
No,
I do not count narcissism as a mental illness.
All of us have a degree of narcissism in us, but by the time they tell you have a disorder, it has gone stretches beyond.
That's why I warned you earlier about the textbookification
but before
of reality.
You tell me that I'm textbookificating whatever,
I know, I invented the word. I invented the word.
Yeah, yes,
but you understand what I'm trying to say, right?
I'm repeating it towards you, and I'm like, before you actually tell me that I'm just being a textbook person, go back and do some research. Don't speak from
we don't
a
need
point
to
of view
pathologize.
of, me, I do not believe in this, so it doesn't exist. Because now you're risking actually sounding like you're not intelligent and you are an intelligent person.
All they said that about us when we were saying masks don't prevent COVID, when we said lockdowns don't work.
We are not going to do that.
You see,
we are sticking to mental health.
This is the beauty of logic, is that it requires a level of consistency. What applies to one situation should apply to all. It has to be, the principles have to be universalizable.
And I'm happy to tell you that when it comes to health,
Olive, you have to let me finish a sentence.
I'm happy to tell you that when it comes to health, things keep evolving because research keeps being done.
You have to let me finish a sentence. And so I sit here before you to remind you that during the COVID era, we were called anti-science and everything. When we questioned efficacy, we were called skeptics. And I'm going to have to mute this when it's on YouTube, because YouTube doesn't like it when you say anything about the good or bad for reasons we can't get into now. But my point is, we were called all sorts of names for raising these points, and yet I think history has vindicated us. So I stand among those who challenge the pathologization of normal human behavior. I think people are prone to have mood swings. I think people are prone to be narcissistic. And I know there's a spectrum of it. Some people can be more narcissistic than others, and it can vary. It can happen more in some instances and not. I think it's all part of the human condition.
But you still don't believe it's an illness.
To slap a label on it and say, okay, here's an illness and here are some pills.
So let me ask you something,
I very much disagree with that.
Do you believe that there are mental illnesses, or do you not?
So please understand, when it comes to mental illness, I take the view that a clear line has to be drawn between the kinds of mental illness that are
apply to you.
No.
The things that you accept.
Things like, when I think of mental illness, I think of actual mental retardation, learning disability. I think of schizophrenia. People are seeing things that don't exist, or they imagine that there are things that there are not.
So in your opinion, it's only mental
illness. Gender dysphoria.
In your opinion, it's only mental illness if it is to the extreme.
Well, oh crap, I don't want to go to work today. Mental illness. That's not mental illness. Oh wait, I feel lousy today.
That's so funny coming from a guy who says he was once diagnosed with clinical depression and even and you even took medication for it.
The medication didn't treat it.
Oh, it did what?
It didn't.
But you said it helped for a bit.
So what the medication did is it treated the symptoms of it. So what are the symptoms?
So if
okay, so what are some of the symptoms of depression? It is obviously very powerful negative emotions, right? And of course, if these negative emotions persist, then you're going to be debilitated. So the aim of these medications, the SSRIs, of which I was on one of those, antidepressants. I think the one I was on was called, there are different types, it's Prozac. I was on venlafaxine. And what it does is that it numbs your neurons and receptors to where your perception of emotion is dulled, okay? So that your emotions never really get to the point where they become so extreme. So it tries to keep them at bay long enough that as you go through your life in doing other things, that your emotions kind of cool down, right? So the intention is to get you across the bridge to the other side, ostensibly. But it in of itself is not what heals you. Now, the problem is, in a lot of instances, and why people are hooked on these drugs for a long time, is that they never address the root cause of those negative emotions. And then they get hooked on these SSRIs for life. It alters your mind. Many people who have ended up committing mass shootings in the US have been consuming these drugs.
I feel like you're contradicting yourself, because in one instance it's like you're dismissing depression and why it exists, and then in the other you're saying, oh, it's there, but you need to know the root cause. So at the end of the day, you and I are on the same page. There is depression. You need to know where it comes from and deal with it before it gets out of hand. So I don't even know why we are arguing, because it's like we are on the same page.
Okay, so our only point of disagreement is not on the issue of cause and effect, but more in how it can be dealt with, and to what extent can it be deemed one's responsibility to deal with. I think we live in a world where there's already enough conversation taking place about these things.
And you think most people, let me tell you, I know people who are going through things and they cannot even entertain the idea that they are actually having a mental meltdown, that they are dealing with something that is beyond. They're like, I don't believe in therapy. I don't believe that mental illness exists. I just have to work and do everything. But you can actually see that this person is broken and they need to do something to help themselves, but they won't even recognize that there is a problem to begin with.
Now, and
how are you going to help yourself if you can't recognize that there is a problem?
And this is why, and people say this also about why HIV has surged, the infection rates. Because part of why the HIV rate was suppressed in the early 90s was because of the stigmatization that came with, and this is a controversial point, but the stigmatization that came with knowledge or rumors regarding your HIV status would lead to stigmatization, which obviously wouldn't be good for the person in that situation or suspected of being in that situation. But do you know what it did? It caused everyone else to be more cautious about not engaging in behavior that would make them likely to get AIDS. So the AIDS rate just plummeted. But now when we started saying, oh, that's stigmatization, don't do that, don't judge people, let them do whatever they want, and now the AIDS rate is sky high.
You're comparing apples and oranges. I saw you saying that stigmatization should help people to wake up and do something about their mental illnesses. Yeah. But the thing you don't realize is that HIV, you could actually decide to abstain or to use condoms.
So here's the thing.
But with mental health, this is something you can't even touch. It's not a high temperature that you need to take Panadol and feel better.
So the symptoms may not necessarily be physical, as it could be the case of a pathogenic illness like malaria or AIDS, where there's germs. But you know how you can tell that you might have something wrong with you? People tell you. Your friends. They disassociate from you.
But the thing
is
that
they don't want to deal with you.
And my question was, there are people out there who will see those things happening and they still don't believe that there is a problem. And you cannot treat something that you don't believe exists.
We know there's people who will be taken to therapy and not even want to get the treatment. You can lead a horse to a lake, but you can't force it to drink. And I think you need to ask yourself this, Olive, is at what point are you going to place the responsibility on the person involved? Because it sounds to me like you're trying to make it society's obligation, and if the person is close enough to you, that it is your personal obligation to ensure that that person receives the treatment. No, I
didn't say that. I didn't say that your mental health should be my responsibility. But if I have noticed something and I mentioned it to you, and it's like, for instance, I like to say that I'm well read about many different things. And if I see something and I suspect it could be a thing, I can raise it with you and we have a conversation about it. But here's the thing, you were bringing in HIV and a stigma. The stigma when it comes to mental health is that people don't even want to accept that mental health is there. you're calling it a crutch that people are using for their laziness. Okay, so and then it's funny because at the same time,
it's being abused.
At the same time, people, when someone commits suicide, people are normally like, they should have talked to someone. They should have opened up. But how are you going to open up when the minute you open up, people are going to tell you you're just lazy, you don't want to work, you're just using mental illness as a crutch? You see that it is a catch-22.
I don't really see it that way, and I think our friend put it the best way possible. Our friend who now is free
oh gosh,
under
I thought
house
I was
arrest.
gonna get through this show without
Top
you mentioning
G. Well, Top G has a now viral video in which he speaks about depression, which on his part, for him, he doesn't buy depression at all. And he gives the example of the actor Robin Williams, who he said was in therapy the whole time. And he asked, and he posed this question: who wouldn't want to kill themselves if for 10 years, every time you go into an office, they give you these mind-altering drugs and they tell you to discuss all your problems? Who wouldn't want to kill themselves after 10 years? But imagine if someone had told Robin Williams instead that, look, dude, you're an Oscar-winning or award-winning actor with many successful movies.
And you think he didn't know that?
There's people who are starving. So wake the F up, stop feeling sorry for yourself, and try and live your life. Perhaps if he'd heard that message a lot more, he may have been less prone to taking his own life.
Oh, okay, another person that follows you and really likes some of the things you say, because I disagree with some of the things you post on your timeline. He said that some people are not depressed, they're just lazy or broke. And I asked him, why do rich people commit suicide? And he couldn't give me an answer, because here we believe that...
He said some people.
No, he said... And I asked him, okay, if people, no, he didn't say some people actually on that post, but let's say it's some people. He said that it's because they are broke. They don't have jobs there. They don't have money. And I'm like, so why would someone, a CEO of a $1 billion company or a celebrity that makes so much money, why would they commit suicide? And he couldn't give me an answer.
Well, I can give you an answer to that because there's so many reasons that might lead someone to feel negative enough to want to terminate their lives. Well, but obviously the conversation is it's a very interesting one, and there's so many angles that we can take, and it's definitely an issue that we should keep revisiting because there's so many facets to explore. But maybe to just wrap it up, and on the point of the DJ who filmed his wife. Well, what's done is done. The wife is now deceased, and so what should our takeaway from that be?
That man is a danger to his children. They should be taken away from him.
My takeaway is, dude, you probably had a messed up relationship. I blame you for choosing a psychotic woman. And by the way, this is something a lot of men don't know. We do fall into relationships with psychotic women, mostly because we're enticed by their very powerful sexuality. There is no woman more freaky than a woman with a few screws loose in her head. Any man can attest to this. It is the girl that's going to totally crush it in the bedroom, do things that have never been done to you before. That's the woman who's going to smash your windscreen and television and slash your tires or try and kill you. It's that woman that's going to do that. So in life, you must make a trade-off. Perhaps you'll find yourself faced with a woman who's not the most exciting, maybe might be dull, quiet, and uninteresting, but you're more likely to enjoy a peaceful life with a woman like that than a woman who is hyperactive and super emotional and super passionate, because no matter the amazing sex you get from her, you are gonna live the rest of your life worried that she might either hurt you or herself.
Or chop off your member.
You get? Am I not making sense, Olive? Don't you agree? Chicks who are psycho.
For me, it's the imagery of her vandalizing the car, the windows of your house.
No one asked Johnny Depp this question, but by the time your wife can take a poop on your bed and you're still with her, there is something she has over you that people don't understand, and the answer is simple: it is the sex. It is.
No, sex is overrated. Come on.
By the way, Olive, you have no idea how powerful sex is. Men spend their lives looking for the woman that just knows how to hit the spot.
But which sex is that? You guys have sex all your lives. Even when you get married, you're not loyal, because what is that hole that you keep looking for that you will never find? I mean,
sex is okay. Sex is sex. Sex is like a slice of bread. You can eat a slice of bread as is, and it's edible. But you can put some butter on it,
and
put some peanut butter on it, put jam on it.
Do you mean to tell me that a man will, as in a guy who is not, let's say, trying to be celibate, who is not trying to be very religious and committing to one person, men who sleep around, and we have those in many, like in huge numbers, are they looking for something that one girl that they've never gotten? Like, Fatboy, you're almost 48, right? And I don't know when you started being active, but I think at least 2 decades you've been active. And are you saying that men of your age are still looking for that it sex?
You don't look for it. It's that you find it, and
you've never found a girl like that?
You'll be surprised how much crap a guy will put up with if the sex is great. And I would argue even ladies might say the same if they find a guy who knows how to hit the spot. But that's the debate for another day.
Sex is overrated.
But to Olive, I think I do acknowledge your feelings on the matter, and I think the actions of this DJ might have come across as callous. I'm not going to claim that he's a perfect guy. I think he's messed up in all kinds of ways.
I'm glad you said that.
And I think he's made many wrong choices, least of which was his choice of wife. But in this case, I think him filming the ordeal ended up being a net positive. And if he had intervened earlier to save the wife's life, who knows if she wouldn't have done something similar down the road and actually succeeded in killing herself still. So,
if she had done that and he wasn't there, no one would blame him for something that happened in his absence. That's why we say institutionalize the person, call their family, because at the end of the day, right now I am Olive, but I have a family. If the man I'm with doesn't like my drama or he is exhausted, he has a right to tell them, you know what, here you go, take your daughter. Let them deal with me as they please, but do not just watch someone else's child dying. Let's even go away from her being the wife. She has a family that cares about her. Let them take their person. You would have extricated yourself, and no one is going to blame you for that.
Yeah, so I made the point earlier that what I had heard is that he had filmed it for the purpose of alerting others that she was a danger to herself. But I guess we're going to learn more about this. This will not be the last time we'll hear of this controversy. But as you can see, the conversation got quite heated here today, and please feel free to carry on the conversation. Discuss it with us on our Facebook page, or if you're going to watch this on YouTube later, just post your thoughts in the comments. But all in all, let us hope for a better future in which we can enjoy more peace between ourselves if we choose to cohabit with our significant others or be married. I think be on the lookout for some of the red flags that indicate a potential for violent behavior. And both sides should do this. If you're a woman, you don't want to be with a dude who
is neurotic,
who has these behaviors. Yeah. And if you're a guy, you don't want a woman like that either. Stay safe and keep listening to The Fatboy Show on RX Radio.